Good morning. Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Madison. My name is Roz Woodward, and my pronouns are she, her. I'm a member of this congregation, and I volunteer as worship associate, helping our ministers lead the service. Today, I'm joined by one of our co-senior ministers, Reverend Kelly Aspreth Jackson, and by the worship team of Linda Warren, Drew Collins, Steve Gregorius, and Dan Carnes. Thank you, Marilyn Chohaney, for contributing your time and talent to the worship today. And a great thank you to all the volunteers for this service. The greeters are Anne Smiley and Farah Kaikso. Ushers are Nancy Daly, Alyssa Ryan-Joy, and Maureen Muldoon. Coffee hospitality is Isa Garusi, Alice Delaquest, Amanda, and Dan Clarahan. Thank you to all. At First Unitarian Society, we question boldly, listen humbly, grow spiritually, and courageously, and love unapologetically. If you're visiting us today, welcome. We're very glad you're here with us. If you'd like more information about First Unitarian Society, please stop by the welcome table located in the Commons just to my left. And as this is the first Sunday of the month, members of the Board of Trustees will be in the Commons to talk with you about their role in the governance of our congregation. Please seek them out with your thoughts and questions. And now I invite you to join me in a moment of silence to center ourselves and bring ourselves fully into this time as we join together once again in community. We have come into this room of hope where our hearts and minds are open to the future.
In times when despair feels reasonable and cynicism seems wise, we gather to practice radical hope.
We have come into this room of justice where we set aside our fear to name freely every oppression.
Not passive waiting, but active defiance against forces that would diminish our humanity.
We come into this room of love where we know that no lives are insignificant.
Together, we choose hope as resistance, imagination as rebellion, and love as our most revolutionary act.
We have come into this room of song where we unite our voices in the somber and the beautiful melodies of life.
Come, let us worship together. And now I invite you to rise in all the ways that we do and join me in the words of aspiration for the kindling of our chalice flame. This fire reminds us of our heritages, of freedom, reason, hope, and courage, and the fuel that allows it to burn, the foundation of all that we celebrate in our past and in our present, is love. Now I invite you to reach out to those around you and greet each other with signs of love and peace.
Good morning. Let's remain standing as we sing our opening hymn, number 89, if you're in a hymnal. 89, Come, my way, my truth, my life.
Well, now I would like to call forward anyone who would like to come up and join Roz and myself today for a story. And Roz has the pictures, but they'll also be on the screen, so you may want to choose your seating accordingly. Hello. Good morning. Come on down. It's good to see you. Hi. So the story that we have for you today is called Maybe Something Beautiful. And the story is by... Oh. It's on. It's on, yeah. Levels, good? Okay. So the story we have today is called Maybe Something Beautiful, and it is actually based on a true story. So, here we go. In the heart of a gray city, there lived a girl who loved to doodle, draw, color, and paint. Anybody else like to do any of those things? Doodling, drawing, coloring, painting? Yeah? Every time that she saw a blank piece of paper, Mira thought to herself, maybe. And because of this, her room was filled with color and her heart was filled with joy. On her way to school one day, Mira gave a round apple to Mr. Henry, the owner of the shop down the street, and she gave flowers to Ms. Lopez, the lady with the sparkling eyes. And here we have, and here up there, you can see, picture of an apple, picture of a flower. She gave a songbird to Mr. Sachs and a red heart to the policeman who walked up and down the streets. On her way home, Mira taped a glowing sun onto the wall, hiding in the shadows. Her city was less gray, but not much. The next day, Mira saw a man with a pocket full of paintbrushes. He gazed at the wall. He looked at her son. He held his fingers up in a square and peered through them. He said thoughtfully. What do you see? Mira asked him. Maybe something beautiful, the man replied. Then, just like that, he dipped a brush into the paint, and bam, pow, the shadows scurried away. Sky blue cut through the gloom. The man's laughter was like a rainbow spreading across the sky. Who are you? Asked Mira. I'm an artist, he said, a muralist. I paint walls. I'm an artist too, she told him. And he handed Mira a paintbrush and said, well, come on. Mira dipped it in the loudest color that she saw. Yowee! The wall lit up like sunshine. As the man drew pictures on the bricks, Mira added color, punch, and pizzazz. Soon Mr. Sachs joined in. Then came others. Everyone painted to the rhythm. Salsa, merengue, bebop. Even Mira's mama painted and danced the cha-cha-cha. The whole neighborhood became a giant block party until the policeman walked up. Excuse me, he said. The music stopped. Mira put her brush down. They were surely in trouble. The officer cleared his throat, then paused and said, may I paint with you? So Mira handed him a paintbrush, and the music started again. Teachers and papas jumped in, babies too. Mira and the man handed out brush after brush. Color spread throughout the streets, and so did joy. Wherever Mira and the man went, air followed like the string of a kite. After they colored the walls, they painted utility boxes and benches. They decorated sidewalks with poetry and shine, and everyone danced. Together they created something more beautiful than they had ever imagined. When their clothes were splattered with a million colors, everyone sat down to rest except the muralist. His eyes sparkled. You, my friends, are all artists, he told them. The world is your canvas. He smiled wide, then pulled everything together in big, sweeping motions. His paintbrush was like a magic wand. When he was finished, Mira added one more bird way up in the sky. Maybe, she thought, just maybe. It's beautiful what we can do with our imaginations, and with some cooperation, isn't it? Thank you so much for listening to our story today, and now we're going to sing you to your classes.
Once again, rise in body and or in spirit, so we can sing our next hymn, which is number 168, One More Step.
All
The inspiration today is by Seamus Haney. Human beings suffer. They torture one another. They get hurt and get hard. No poem or play or song can fully right a wrong, inflicted or endured. The innocent in jails beat on their bars together. A hunger striker's father stands in the graveyard, dumb. The police widow in veils faints at a funeral home. History says, don't hope on this side of the grave. But then, once in a lifetime, the longed-for tidal wave of justice can rise up, and hope and history rhyme. So hope for a great sea change on the far side of revenge. Believe that a further shore is reachable from here. Believe in miracles and cures and healing wells. Call miracle self-healing, the utter self-revealing double-take of feeling. If there's fire on the mountain or lightning and storm and a God speaks from the sky, that means someone is hearing the outcry and the birth cry of new life at its term. It means once in a lifetime that justice can rise up and hope and history rhyme.
In the 3rd century of the Common Era, on what was then a small city with a Greek name located along the Nile River, in the Roman imperial province of Egypt, lived an influential figure named Zosimos of Panopolis. Zosimos is among the very earliest identifiable figures in the mysterious history of alchemy. Specifically, he is held to be responsible for the origin of the name of that practice itself, even though he did not call the strange work that he devoted himself to alchemy. For him, it was labeled with a Greek term, kairokmeta, or things made by hand. But Zosimos was so influential over this thing which had elements of an artistic expression, a scientific inquiry, and a spiritual practice, that it came to have a certain persistent association with his country. After the fall of the Roman Empire, much of the Greco-Roman world's knowledge of science and medicine, and alchemy touched on both of those, were lost to Europeans. But the Arabic-speaking world enjoyed far better record-keeping, and their study and advancements continued. In Arabic, the art/science/religion, which Zosimos practiced, came to be known as chemia, which derives from a Greek word for fusing metal. But it's also a bit of wordplay, since Chem is the ancient indigenous name for Egypt, the place where Zosimos, its earliest and possibly most famous practitioner, lived. With Arabic's definite article, al, and some natural corruptions as the term passed into French and then into English, we arrive at the final name of alchemy, and the particular credit for it that is owed to Zosimos. Alchemy is sometimes described simply as the doomed quest to transform lead into gold, and that is reasonably accurate as far as it goes. It is also sometimes credited as a precursor to modern chemistry, which shares its word origin with alchemy. And that is also fair, if an incomplete truth. Particularly during the late Renaissance in Europe and for another few centuries afterwards, there was a lot of interest in alchemy as a means of getting rich by transforming a cheap material into a highly valuable one. Or, for the less scrupulous and devoted students, the means to wealth was simply to fool someone else into believing that the means of this marvelous transformation had been discovered. Then the huckster could sell that method to their foolish mark directly and make off with the proceeds before their ruse was discovered. But for Zosimos and for other true believers, alchemy was about much more than just turning lead into gold. That was a step in the process, maybe, or simply a metaphor for the ultimate goal of attaining immortality. And that immortality was to be attained by achieving spiritual perfection, washing away moral impurities through means similar to the practices for isolating a single element in a laboratory. So however self-interested this quest was, it was also a deeply spiritual one. And processes it involved, studying and experimenting on various metals and other materials, required rigor and learning, and led to a great many critical discoveries in the history of science. At their most noble, the alchemists were seeking to understand themselves and the world so that they could transform both, and to transform them in a manner of great wholeness and completeness. It was not just a matter of greed, but the disciplined pursuit of change, of transforming the world without in order to transform the world within. Now, depending on who you are and where you reside in our society's spectrum of comfort, your feelings about change, big, sweeping change, may be anywhere from enthusiastic to fearful. Of course, the type of change, the direction of change matters for this. The implications of human-caused increases in average global temperature since the outbreak of the Industrial Revolution, which we used to refer to most often as climate change, and are now usually describing more clearly as climate crisis, you probably think of this as a negative sort of change. I mean, I really hope that you do. I do. But the changes to infrastructure and energy systems, the reordering of the way that we trade and build and consume on a planetary scale that is necessary in order to address this crisis and to mitigate its otherwise devastating impacts on human beings everywhere, that is also change. Big change, in fact. This is just one of the many dimensions of our present age in which having things just stay like they are or simply go back to being like they were is no longer an option on the table. The fossil fuel-powered heyday of the so-called American century, the last century, with its relatively dependable global climate patterns, one cannot continue to burn the coal and the oil and the natural gas while also relying on the oceans to remain where they are and unacidified. It is simply a choice between different changes. And this has parallels in the realm of the political, the economic, the cultural, even the spiritual. Now, if you are frightened by this circumstance, if you have the feeling in these days that the ground beneath your feet is constantly shifting, or even that there is no ground at all, you are not alone. I say that with certainty because I have that feeling too. The familiar, the predictable, the formerly dependable also has an allure for me. It is rightly scary to feel as though we do not know where we are going. And the great thinker and writer Virginia Woolf once wrote many years ago, during her own time of upheaval and, up until then, unprecedented change, that the future is dark, which is, on the whole, the best thing that the future can be, I think. The only thing that ought to frighten us more than an uncertain future is a certain one in which no improvements can be made, no corrections attempted. In the darkness, what cannot be seen holds the possibility of some new and vital transformation. Now, the quest to transform the world and create an elixir of eternal life is not actually unique to the alchemy of Europe and North Africa and Southwest Asia. There is a critical story on a similar topic from the Hindu tradition called the Samudra Manthana, the churning of the ocean of milk. So in this story, the gods sought a magical drink called Amrita, the potion of eternal life. And they were so determined in their quest that they made a pact, a temporary truce and alliance with their ancient enemies, the demons, in order to work together and to share the power of this mystical beverage. The ocean of milk in this story exists on another plane of existence. In some tellings, it's specifically another planet orbiting a different star. At the center of that vast, pale sea, there stood a tremendous mountain. The gods and the demons took hold of Vasuki, the king of the serpents, whose body is so long that it could stretch from the shore to the mountain, wind around the mountain several times, and then back to the shore again on the far side. The gods would pull on Vasuki their way, and the mountain would twist in the great snake's coils, frothing up the ocean of milk. And then the demons would pull on Vasuki back their way, and the same motion would happen in the opposite direction, as though the mountain were the agitator at the center of a washing machine. The milk flowed and jumped, and waves and ripples splashed all across its surface and pulsed down deep into its depths. But there were problems. First, the mountain began to sink, disturbed by all of this twisting motion. So the god Vishnu took the form of a turtle and supported the mountain on its back. Next, a terrible poison dripped from the mouth of the snake, threatening to contaminate the sea below. So the god Shiva rescued the operation by swallowing that poison. Because of the strength of his compassion and because of the loving intercession of his partner, the goddess Parvati, he did not die. Instead, the poison caught in his throat and turned it eternally blue. In the same way that rich milk, churned long enough, eventually produces butter, the churning of the ocean eventually brought forth wondrous things. These included entirely new divinities, the moon itself, a 7-headed horse, a wish-granting cow, and several magical elephants. Out of the ocean of milk also came powerful weapons, valuable jewels, and a flowering tree with blossoms that never wilt or fade. Finally, at the end of the work, the gods and the demons completed their quest. Out of the ocean of milk came Amrita, the nectar of immortality. The transformation of anything as complicated as a person or the world is rarely predictable and smooth. The process is more likely to be erratic, with consequences and outcomes that could not be expected at the outset. And great change also tends to require innovation and spontaneous problem solving. Working for change is not just about having good ideas and convictions to pursue them. but also how much we are willing to change and adapt ourselves as the demands of the moment shift along that path. We live in an age sorely in need of transformation. Political activist, magazine publisher, and rabbi Michael Lerner describes the ethic of the modern market-driven society as one that sees human beings in a materialist, utilitarian framework, as maximizing their own advantage without regard for others. Lerner goes on to say that this has created increasing loneliness, a doubt that we can count on anyone else. Unconsciously, many people adopt the values of the marketplace. These values have a corrosive impact on their own friendships, relationships, and family life. The overwhelming ethos of our society pushes us to understand each other as commodities, things valued only for their use, which can be replaced as necessary. This is the antithesis of loving relationship. The difference, as the esteemed Jewish philosopher Martin Buber identified it, between an I-it relationship and an I-thou relationship. The solution to this is to love with determination and resilience. The more that we form and strengthen relationships that value others not as a means to an end, but as an end in themselves, the more we will necessarily tear down the walls of the ethos of self-interest. This has to happen, really can only happen organically. The choices that we make have to follow from relationship, rather than implementing a singular strategy or subscribing to an exclusive method for change. The capacity of nature in order to transform is humbling and awesome. A redwood grows from a seed that is smaller than a grain of rice. A river carves a canyon a mile deep into the rock. An off-brand variety of ape with a weak sense of smell and no natural defenses to speak of rises to become the most powerful and the most dangerous manner of animal on the planet. Change, whether it begins small and ends up humongous, or starts big and finishes tiny, change is what being alive is about. It is often the great changes of life, the moments in our existence that require us to transform, just to continue going on, that can feel like the most anguished and challenging of times. So when we come to them, it is important for us to remember that we are a part of the vast, continuously unfolding process called nature. Change is essential to what we are. The activist and author Rebecca Solnit reminds us that hope depends upon the changeability of the world that we share. She writes, "Hope locates itself in the premises that we don't know what will happen, and that in the spaciousness of uncertainty, there is room to act." When you recognize uncertainty, you recognize that you may be able to influence the outcomes, you alone or you in concert, with a few dozen or several million others. Hope is an embrace of the unknown and the unknowable, an alternative to the certainty of both optimists and pessimists. Optimists think it will be fine without our involvement. Pessimists take the opposite position. Both excuse themselves from acting. It is the belief that what we do matters, even though how and when it may matter, who and what it may impact are not things that we can know beforehand. And the great Catholic mystic Thomas Merton reminds us that the uncertainty of hope is not a footnote, not a thing that is a minor consideration. It is the thing itself. The uncertainty of it is a thing to be embraced. The best and only means of sustaining our efforts in the face of disappointment and despair, clarifying why it is that we struggle and change at all. He writes, "Do not depend on the hope of results. You may have to face the fact that your work will be apparently worthless and even achieve no result at all, if not perhaps results opposite to what you expect. As you get used to this idea, you start more and more to concentrate not on the results, but on the value, the rightness, the truth of the work itself. You gradually struggle less and less for an idea and more for specific people. In the end, it is the reality of personal relationship that saves everything." Now, in the actual science of chemistry, when Zosimos of Panopolis did not practice, but did contribute to the building blocks of, in the practice of chemistry, a transformation is usually described as a reaction. And there is a crucial distinction to be made between endothermic and exothermic reactions. Very simply, an endothermic reaction takes in energy, while an exothermic reaction puts out energy. For a scientist in a laboratory trying to create and manage such changes, just as important is the consideration of how the reaction is started and sustained. An exothermic reaction will usually require some sort of energy to be put in at the start, but then it will run its course. It will maintain itself. It does not require further input of energy after it is begun. While an endothermic reaction needs energy all along the course of its trajectory. The lesson that I take from that is this. Sometimes the most important determination that we have to make when deciding how to effect change is whether our situation is in need of an exothermic or an endothermic reaction. Whether it is a change that we just need to put in the energy on up front that will sustain itself, or if it is a change that will require energy all along in order to carry it through.
I invite you into this time of giving and receiving, where we give freely and generously to this offering, which supports the ongoing work of this community and the work of our outreach offering recipient, who this week is Restoring Hope Transplant House, a non-profit home away from home for patients and their caregivers who are in the Madison area for organ, bone, marrow, or other transplants at the UW hospital and clinics. As a regional hub for transplant procedures, many people and their families travel to Madison each year to receive life-saving and often physically demanding and lengthy transplant procedures. Restoring Hope helps to offer such families a caring environment in which to stay during the process. There are multiple ways to share your gifts. Baskets will be passed here in the auditorium for cash or checks, and you can donate directly from our website, fusmadison.org, and you'll see on the screen our text to give information. We thank you for your generosity and your faith in this life we create together.
Thank you so much for that beautiful music. Each week we gather, bringing with us the joys and the losses of our days. Bring them here and share them, knowing that they are held in love, in care, and in support. We light a candle of healing and care for Jeannie Hills as we send our love to her as she recovers from a recent surgery. Cards and messages are very welcome. We light a candle of gratitude and memory for Jack Naughton, who passed away on November 15th. A memorial service will be held at the Oakwood West Chapel on December 13th, 1 week from yesterday, at 11 a.m. We send our love to Jack's family as they miss him and mourn his passing. We light a candle of grief for the death last month of Shirley Blakeman, sister of Norma Standing. We send our care and support to Norma and to all who loved and Miss Shirley. We light a candle of gratitude for each of the over 300 holiday messages which were written by members of FUS to remind incarcerated Unitarian Universalists that they are not alone, that they are worthy, and that they are loved. Thank you all to all who participated in that project a few weekends ago. And we light one final candle for all that lives in our hearts, the joy, the celebrations, the sorrow, and the loss. May we know that we are held in love. You'll join me now in a moment of prayer and contemplation with these words from Paul Beadle. Let us contemplate the Spirit together. Spirit of life and love, justice and peace, day in and day out, weight weary tasks. Burdens we lift again, worn paths we wear some more. Want and means worn thin, and fatigue, pain and grief, coldness of heart, bitter and weary days. Where we know desolation, how do we call forth hope? Where our hearts are buried, sunken down, how do we dig out, rise up? What healing touch do we long for? What balm might we take and share? Come what may, O Spirit of life, may we keep a ray of light for our inward path, a living water in the depth of us, cleansing breath at our core. May we keep them for ourselves and to share. May we call forth from each other vitality and tenacity. May love rest in us. May justice live through us. May we have the touch to call others back to life and love, justice, and peace. May we sing back their songs and add the alleluias. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, so may it be. And now let us enter into a time of silence together. Amen.
You to once again rise in body and/or in spirit. So we can sing together our closing hymn, number 108, My Life Flows On in Endless Song.
I
As we weather winds of change, may we have wisdom to cherish moments of stillness. As we recollect times of challenge and of pain, may we remember also the graceful blessings of our lives. As we look to future unknowns, may we have the boldness to trust that there is unimagined good yet to come. Blessed be. Go in peace, and please be at rest for the postlude.